Hi there, Robin here, and today we are going to be comparing the ICOA versus the ZLX. That is the LD Systems versus Electro-Voice. They are great speakers, both of them. Now, this is a 15-inch, that's a 12-inch. This one's got a 1200 peak rating. This one's got a 1000 peak rating, which means absolutely nothing to my opinion because they're both very loud as a speaker that gets you started in any kind of business. Now, regardless if you're using it as a DJ for smaller weddings or if you're using it as a band for a bar, a pub, a club, a hall, wherever you're planning on playing, if it's to a reasonable amount of people. Yes, I know people aren't a good way to justify it, but it does give you an idea how big the space is. 50 to 150 people, then that's the way to go. But with these speakers, when you get into bigger venues, you can put them on their sides and use them as proper monitors on the stage as well. So that's a big benefit. They also get used really well for side fill on larger setups. So we are going to throw some science at these speakers and actually talk about the why and what do they talk about when they talk about how they make their speaker better versus how they talk about how they make their speaker better. They both have a lot of technology and they both incorporate a lot of unique designs to them, which is good for both of these companies. So the first thing we got to do is take the covers off. So both these speakers are considered what they call single point. So the speaker drives in one direction, and both these speakers have constant directional horns on them, which is CD horns, which is what you see here and what you see here. Now, these are both very important setups on both these speakers. It is part of their sale feature. So when you're buying these speakers and you're wondering, well, what makes them special? Well, that's going to be a big part of their actual products. So another big important feature is their actual DSP, more so here because it does help with the way the sound comes out. Here, it's just the overall processing and the fancy name they give it. Electro-Voice also gives their actual horn a title, a name, ooh, look at me, I've got something special going on. Now, don't get me wrong, I might be a little sarcastic in saying that, but it is a very good system and it actually does work. So Electro-Voice does two major things on their speaker. Their SST, Signal Synchronized Transducer, say that 5 times fast, and also their QuickSmart, I kid you not, that's what it's called. It's called a QuickSmartDSP, which is the actual DSP processor they have inside. Add those two things together and you get the actual ZLX-12BT, and you get a speaker that is built as well for a main forward firing single point speaker as you do for a stage monitor, because they always have to take in consideration the actual horn on top and how it's going to interact with the driver. We'll get back to that in a second. So on this side, this is the 15-inch ICOA. It's the actual ICOA-15A BT. The big important feature here is the coaxial horn that they place in the center. Now, in the past, this was a good idea, but keeping it in phase was always a problem. Here, they fix that. They actually have their processor, their DSP processor, which is called the Dynex, and it controls everything from crossover frequencies to pitch and all kinds of stuff. But most importantly, the offset and the delay for the actual horn in front of the woofer. Now, this is where we throw a little bit of science into the whole thing. Waveforms. That's our biggest problem with both these speakers, and that's what they're trying to fix and sell to you as a very important feature, and they both are addressing it. So they're not ignoring it. A lot of times you look at speakers and they just kind of like throw a whole bunch of stuff together and it's like, there you go. Not with these two companies. So they're both looking at it in a way of throwing some science into fixing the problems that speakers can traditionally have. And that's real important because a lot of companies just throw a speaker out there and say, here you go, throw it on stage, you're good to go. No, these companies recognize that they have to fix things, make the sound better before you can make it louder. And that's what's going on here. The actual waveform that's generated here is very important. If we actually talk about hertz for a second, yes, we're going to talk about hertz for a second. If we have a frequency that's down at 20 hertz, the waveform there is almost 50 feet. So yes, the wave comes up and goes down 50 feet. The half is 25. As we move up smaller and smaller, when we get to about 1 kilohertz, it becomes 12 inches, which pretty much lines up right here with the actual woofer, which is good because now we are starting to get some control over the direction of sound we have here. As that frequency gets higher and higher and higher, that waveform is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point that when you start getting to 10 kilohertz, 10,000 hertz, that wave is only 4 inches, and it's only getting smaller. It's getting smaller the higher we go up that actual frequency, to the point that it becomes only basically like half an inch, I think, in diameter. It's very, very small. And the actual horn has to correct that. They have to modify that. And that's what's going on here. Now, there's another thing that has to take place. We need to get all the sound up here to match with all the sound down here. And you think, well, that's easy. Just stand 3 feet away from the speaker and it'll all be blended. Well, amazingly enough, just like ripples in a pond, if I make a wave on one side and then I make a wave next to it, a certain amount of that's going to actually interact and mix together. But you'll also notice that a portion of the first wave pushes away in another direction, and a portion of the other wave will push away in another direction. So what we're trying to do is get both of those little waves to blend together as much as possible, and they get a pretty good job. I mean, I couldn't give you an exact number, but you're looking at over 80% of a blend. So maybe they're closer to 90. And why is that? Because they're getting the actual horn closer to the woofer. So we're actually going to get that together a lot quicker. And also, they've taken note to actually give it a very wide berth. So this way, the actual sound has a chance to disperse and really open up. Now, another trick is to give it a bit of a curve to the actual slope. So the actual speaker has a bit of a roundness to it. They want to create basically negative pressure against the actual horn, the body of the horn. And by curving it, you're going to create negative pressure, which is going to pull the sound in that direction. Because at the end of the day, we're just pushing sound through air. That's what it all is. It's just molecules bouncing in the molecules and making sound. So we have the ability of taking something that's moving pretty straight, and by simply creating a low pressure underneath it, we can bend it down or we can bend it up or to the left and right. And that's how the Electro-Voice gets the two sounds to blend in really well. Also, instead of throwing the ports at the bottom, which are generating sound, they have it all vented right up underneath. This is all part of the SST system. You know, a lot of people may, go right over it. It is listed like second to last on the feature list, but it's very important. All of these little things add up, and it's nice that they put it on here. And it's not just smoke and mirrors for this speaker. They also add it up the line in their series of products. When it's explained, it starts to make sense, and it does work. When you actually get to stand in front of a speaker like this, even if it's on the floor or on an actual stand, you'll notice pretty fast that the sound is very smooth and balanced coming off the actual speaker. And that's a big positive, because if it sounds good at regular volume levels, it helps it sound better when it's at louder volume, because when you turn it up, you're just multiplying the problems. Not just internally with the quality of the driver or the amplifier or even the box, but how well this sound got mixed together right in front. If the mix isn't really good, if these two speakers didn't line up and that sound comes across smooth, then it's not going to be smooth when you turn it up. That's for sure. That's why I like the ZLX. Now, let's talk about the ICOA and why I like the ICOA. So remember, at any point in time, you can always hit that thumbs up button. If you like comparison videos, if you like to learn more about actual speakers, hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a perfect time to hit that subscribe button. So when you look at the actual ICOA, I mean, it stands out. You can't take that away. You've got a coaxial speaker there, and that's really big deal. The speaker is built to generate a lot of clean sound. And just like I was saying about the ZLX, clean sound is what you need to start with before you can get it loud. So here's some of the reasons why this actually does such a good job at getting you, well, clean sound. Coaxial speakers are always fascinating because you end up with a speaker right in the middle of another speaker, and everybody thinks, oh, well, I must be limiting the sound of the driver behind it because, well, there's a speaker in front of it. And you would think so, but amazingly enough, that doesn't work that way. Because remember, when we're talking about frequencies and the lower frequencies having such a large sound wave, that's going to come right across and over this whole space. Even though that sound wave at 20 hertz, right, is so large, we only fraction a small part of that because we're, that's our ear, right? We fraction that much of it, and that's what we interpret. And it doesn't matter where we stand in front of it, it's going to sound the same because it's the same wave that we're picking up. The same isn't true when it comes to the highs. Because the highs are much more focused, think of like a spotlight versus a par light. So the woofer is a par and the horn is more of a spotlight. you have to control it. And that's where the actual vertical and horizontal. So in this case here, where they say it's basically 90 horizontally and 50 vertically, that's just the horn portion of it, because the driver, up until in this case here around 900 hertz, doesn't have a lot of control over the sound. So, and that, by the way, refers to not just the speaker, but pretty much all speakers. So most speaker companies, and I use the word most because JBL, when we do get one into the showroom, I'll show you how that's different from the other manufacturers. But pretty much I'm going to say 90% of the manufacturers don't have a lot of control over the lower frequencies. Of course, the cabinet does help, and everything they do is to try and make it better to push the sound forward. But they do have a lot of sound that goes backwards as well. You can't be avoided. Frequency is just too large to handle. It's big. So in this case here, their driver, by being offset further in the box, does give us better control and gives us more sound coming out the front, which is a good thing. But it also gives us a horn that's way further front than any other speaker. Of course, like the ZLX, for example, one of the cell features is they line up both diaphragms for the actual woofer and for the tweeter, so they're lined up in the same point, this way giving us a perfect sync up front without having to process the sound or to delay one versus the other. Here though, they basically, you know what, technology is very good today. If you want to throw a DSP and a delay in, you can do that, and you can do it dead on. I mean, it's not rocket science, it's not complicated, it's not expensive. Once you do it once, you just repeat the same task over and over again on a chip. It's done. It's easy. And that's what's going on here. And that's what allows this speaker to sound really good. Now, when you combine the fact that they've put ports on all four corners, and they've put the actual horn dead center, and they've recessed the actual 15-inch driver, you add all those things up, and it's going to give you a sound different from everybody else. Even different from the ZLX. So it's almost like a Coke and Pepsi. They're both really good, but they both have slight differences in their overall sound. But when you throw this in front of you as an actual monitor, it's unmatched. I cannot see any speaker that's two-way in design that's going to reproduce what this guy can do when you actually set the actual horn in the center. Where companies can achieve 80 to 90% immersion between the actual horn and the driver, which means, you know, we're losing only 5% off the top and 5% off the bottom. These guys virtually get 100% immersion. Once you're 4 feet away from this driver, it's like perfect. The lower frequencies that come match up with the higher frequencies envelop each other. And because they are digitally synced, there's perfect immersion between the two. So overall, this is a great design for a speaker, no matter if you're using it as a main speaker or if you do planning on using it as a monitor. So I know some people are concerned about throw distance when it comes to a coaxial speaker, and I don't see that it really mounts up to a lot. If there is a difference, it's a very small number. So when it comes up to the ICOA, it does a really good job at being both a main and especially well as being a monitor. If you lined up a whole bunch of these on stage, you would be able to move across the stage and the sound would be consistent. You wouldn't have this high-low effect that you normally get out of a standard two-way speaker. And they do certainly throw an awful lot of technology on the backside. So this is something that wraps up for both of them, though. When you take both these speakers, you're going to get a lot of tech. And that's what it's all about. Whenever you buy an amplified speaker today from some of the big brands out there, like these guys here, you're going to get an amplifier that was built to go with the driver set that was in front, that was built to go with the box that it's in. And when you put all of that together, and these companies take the time to do it right, and a lot of them do, you're going to have a really good speaker. So they're both fun to actually own because they do have features like Bluetooth. They both offer 3.5. They both have 2 combo jack inputs. They let you do an awful lot with just the speaker that you get. Now, it's always important. Everything I've talked about to you today is thinking about you're probably going to get a pair of these speakers, not just one. And remember, they do have Bluetooth, and both of them do offer the ability to take that Bluetooth and use an XLR cable to hook up a second speaker to it. And both these speakers both come in, of course, 12 and 15 and 15 and 12-inch combinations. That makes it very versatile to get the right size for you and be able to have enough power that you're looking to fill in the space. As weight goes, well, the ICOA actually wins on that side. They are heavier speakers. It's because it takes a lot more molding to actually get the speaker in the body shape that we have here. And because of that and the extra weight on their driver package, that is definitely going to change things a little bit. Maybe about 10 pounds. But again, if this is your first set of speakers or maybe a spare set that you're getting, you've probably gotten used to the weight. And even though both of them are made out of plastic housing, it's not old plastic housing like back 10 years ago where it sounded very, echoey and hollow and you had a very shallow sound out of the box. It's not like that anymore. They've engineered everything pretty much out of it at this point, and they've gotten the boxes to feel solid, to reproduce that wood box feel to it, we can call it, and they're doing a really good job at that. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because, that's what it's all about. And I really, if you haven't subscribed yet, we're looking for subscribers. We're trying to get that number up there a bit. And by all means, hit that thumbs up button. I'd much appreciate it. And if you want, by all means, put down a comment. That's what it's there for. I read them. I try to. Like I say, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.